Chapter 21 Plot. Calvin and Beth are discussing their trip to Houston for the golf tournament. They plan to stay with Beth's brother while attending the golf tournament. Calvin wanders around the house and finds a real album called A London Symphony by Vaughan Williams. Calvin is overcome with nostalgia about his time in Spain with Beth. When Conrad was in the hospital, while Conrad was in the hospital, and almost a year since Buck's death. All is well in Spain, no worries, no problems. They're away from the US where all the problems lie, including Conrad in the hospital and Buck's memory of his death. Then Conrad continues to recall his past with his mentor, Arnold. I chose Calvin for my main character because he is the basic idea of this chapter. Calvin. Calvin, during his nostalgic moment, comes to a conclusion that he is a man who believes in safety, on page 173. Much light is shed on Calvin's past in this chapter. Calvin had a problem earlier in his life with his mentor, Arnold. When Calvin chose Beth over Arnold, Calvin lost his mentor, the closest father figure he had. Calvin chose Beth because he wanted a family, a wife, people to share his goals with. You can see this information on page 174. Arnold told Calvin that Beth was not a sharer, that he would end up doing all the sharing in the relationship. Calvin then starts to remember that he almost cheated on Beth but couldn't go through with it because it wouldn't have been safe. He says infidelity is a dangerous game, as seen on page 175. When Calvin finally comes to the conclusion that Beth is not a forgiving person, saying it is not in her nature to forgive, Calvin refutes his own conclusion and instead decides he is thinking too much. Calvin in this chapter is shown that he thinks too much, especially about the past that he dwells on, versus Beth that only thinks about the future. This chapter has much significance in this novel, Ordinary People. Calvin's obsession with the past leads him into bringing about much of the conflict with Beth, ultimately leading to Beth's leave. Also, we can see throughout the novel, Calvin is always playing it safe because he doesn't want to lose anyone, like how he lost Buck and his mentor Arnold, because he chose Beth and his family over being the best tax attorney with Arnold. Calvin is always asking Conrad about how he feels and worrying about all about Conrad all the time, thus creating arguments with Beth and again ultimately leading to the destruction of the family that he once wanted. The end. Alright. Well, my presentation, I should give more of an insight on Calvin and how he has more of a significance. The theme around him him remembering about the past, that he somehow wants to change the past, alter the past, and that's why he doesn't think about the future. He's the opposite of Beth. Maybe I should include that. He's opposite of Beth, and that he dwells in the past and she dwells in the future, while Conrad thinks about the present, how he can change his life around. Also that the chapters alternate in between Conrad and Calvin. Like chapter 20 was on Conrad and chapter 21 is on Calvin. And I think chapter 22 is on Conrad again. And I should emphasize more of the chapter significance within the story of this novel. how it impacts it more. I think I gave a good summary just about how Calvin remembers about his past, about Beth, Arnold, and his time in Spain with Beth. Um, I should be more concise also in my descriptions. Alright, thank you, Mr. Luongo. Have a nice day.